Before you listen to this BBC podcast, I'd like to introduce myself. My name's Stevie Middleton and I'm a BBC Commissioner for a load of sport podcasts. I'm lucky to do that at the BBC because I get to work with leading journalists, experienced pundits and the biggest sports stars. Together we bring you untold stories and fascinating insights straight from the players' mouths. But the best thing about doing this at the BBC is our unique access to the sporting world. What that means is that we can bring you podcasts that create a real connection to dedicated sports fans across the UK. So if you like this podcast, head over to BBC Sounds where you'll find plenty more.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast, bringing you all the news, views and analysis you need. It's Wednesday the 15th of May. I'm Kenny Crawford and it's a busy one today.
Right, eyes up, the far corner, he finds the net again!
Rangers dismantled Dundee, but why was Philippe Clement angry? Also,
Stanton and Vaughan, what a finish! What a finish from Lewis Vaughan!
it's advantage Raith Rovers in the Premiership playoff semi-final. We'll also take a look at Hibs with Mackay being brought in as sporting director. And in the Premiership tonight,
it's all about St Johnstone Wednesday night and making sure that we perform better. We know what's at stake and we'll be prepared and ready for that.
Can County keep clear of St Johnstone?
This is the Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Well, I'm delighted to divulge that I've got a couple of comrades to accompany us through our discussion. The first is former Hibs, St Johnstone, Caley Thistle and Dundee United attacking midfielder David Wotherspoon, Canada international as well. Hello, David. You've got 3 young kids, but are you first up in the house this morning?
No, I wasn't first up in the house, unfortunately, but yeah, I've kept them at bay at the moment.
And how's the future looking for you at the moment? Any early contract offers for next season?
Not yet. Trying to enjoy the time with the family at the moment and get something sorted soon.
Good, I'm sure they'll be in the post this morning. Watch out for that postman bringing them the letters into the letterbox. Our second comrade could have quite easily played professionally, but he's opted to be the Sunday Mail's chief football writer instead. It's Scott McDermott. Good morning, Scott.
Morning, Kenny.
Did you have a frantic night flicking through the football games on different channels last night?
I did indeed. Channel hopping between the Rangers game, the Partick Thistle game, and then trying to get a wee glimpse of the Spurs Man City game as well. So yeah, it was good fun.
Good stuff. Well, thanks both of you for joining us this morning. Lots to get through with David and Scott, but first here's a wee selection of the latest Scottish football headlines. Rangers came back from 2-0 down to defeat Dundee 5-2 and prolong Celtic's wait to be crowned champions. Raith Rovers beat Partick Thistle 2-1 at Firhill in the Premiership playoff semi-final first leg, while Dumbarton overcame Spartans by the same scoreline in the first leg of the League One playoff final. In the SWPL, Spartans women's team also lost last night, 4-3 at Montrose, and Mackay will oversee the search for Nick Montgomery's successor as Hibs manager after being appointed as sporting director at Easter Road. OK, let's get stuck into the discussion and begin with the game at Ibrox last night. A 5-2 win for Rangers, but Clement not happy, Scott. What did you make of it?
No wonder he wasn't happy, Kenny, certainly with the first half performance. And unfortunately for Rangers, that's been a real negative characteristic of their displays in the last few months. That slow start. After the Old Firm game on Saturday, it was the first thing Philippe Clement said in his post-match press conference, that he was angry at the lack of aggression shown by his team at the start of the game. And I just find that astonishing, getting into an Old Firm derby with a title on the line. So that is a big worry for the manager. And yet again last night, when he's looking for his team to show a reaction from the Old Firm defeat, they're so slow out of the blocks. And I know that there wasn't a big crowd last night. I know the place was flat after Saturday's result. But he gave players a chance, fringe players a chance last night, guys that came in who haven't played a lot of football. There's still a Scottish Cup final in less than 2 weeks, so there's places up for grabs. I just thought the first half performance again, so slow, so lethargic. They find themselves 2 down again. And we no disrespect to Dundee, they can maybe afford to go 2 down and obviously come back like they did last night. They did show a reaction in the second half and come back to win the game. But listen, the last 2 Old Firm games against Celtic, they've found themselves 2 down early, and ultimately that's cost them. So I'm not surprised he's angry. I think we all accept there'll be big changes at Rangers in the summer. I think there has to be. And I think Clement in the last few weeks will have found out a lot about certain players in that squad. And there's definitely guys who you saw last night won't be there next season.
David, Todd Cantwell definitely had an interesting game, involved in so much, in many ways a similar position to yourself. What did you make of his game last night?
Yeah, obviously he set up the first and then he scored that wonder goal. I'm sure he'll be claiming that was a shot.
Right, Cantwell takes a touch on the right. Good ball in, but it's gone all the way in. Todd Cantwell has rifled that into the top left corner from this right-hand side touchline. You'd be doing pretty well to convince anyone that wasn't a cross.
But you're obviously going to celebrate the way he does, like act as if you'd scored it yourself. But no, it was an interesting game. The fact that they just didn't turn up the first half, and then they turn up second half with an injection of youth, I guess. They put on the youth players, the fringe players, and they've managed to cause a reaction for the players and encourage the players that are actually playing first team football all the time. And then obviously they come back, but I saw the stat at half time as well that Dundee have conceded the most goals in the second half in games. So it wasn't a surprise that they went and conceded 5 in the second half. But it's obviously a good response for them, but they shouldn't be in that situation to start with.
Yeah, and Scott, an interesting byproduct of last night. Dundee obviously disappointed to lose, but that also means that St Mirren get 5th place in European football for the first time since 1987. So the Buddies will be absolutely delighted about that.
Yeah, brilliant achievement for Stephen Robinson and the players. They were obviously disappointed at the weekend losing to Kilmarnock, so they still had a job to do. Certainly if Dundee had got something last night. But now, when you think where St Mirren were a few years ago, for Stephen Robinson to come in 2 top 6 finishes, they feel now like almost like an established top 6 club, which is brilliant for them. The progress they've made, the recruitment's been good. I think behind the scenes is looking a lot better as well. So no, they'll be delighted, and as you say, the St Mirren fans can get the passports out and look forward to a wee summer trip. And let's hope it's not just one European away trip, because too often probably Scottish clubs, maybe like St Mirren, have got in there, not done themselves justice, and pretty much been out of Europe before the league season started. So that's something that obviously Stephen Robinson will build again in the summer. He'll add to the squad, and I think they'll want to have a right good crack at it.
This is the Scottish Football Podcast.
David, on to the Premiership playoff last night, the semi-final first leg. Really good game between Partick Thistle and Raith Rovers. Raith holding the 2-1 advantage. What did you make of that game?
Yeah, it was a cracking game. I'm always excited to watch these games on the Friday because you never know what's going to happen. But 2 attacking teams that showed that trying to get into the Premiership's so hard, but they started the game well, and Raith just took it by the scruff of the neck, I think, at the start, in the first half. Completely 2 different halves. Raith just took it at the start. I think it was like the fresh legs, I think, just gave them that appetite and got after them and got their goals. But you could see that Partick are getting chances, and you just had that feeling that they would get one. And they showed that in the second half. They came out with a different team, and I think Raith just sort of sat off a wee bit. I think it was a 2-0 lead. I felt like they were just comfortable with that. They didn't really push as high up the pitch as they did the first half. And then obviously they managed to get their goal, and you felt like maybe they might get another. But it sets up for a great tie on Friday.
Yeah, Raith hadn't played for 11 days going into that one, so maybe the freshness told a bit. 2 really good goals, Scott Brown and Lewis Vaughan, brilliant finishes. How important, Scott, was the Blair Alston goal, and what an assist by Scott Robinson to set that up with his header from lying in the ground?
I know. I mean, listen, that goal could be crucial. Listen, it's a brilliant result for Raith, and I just can't help but feeling these playoffs. No, I feel for Thistle because having to get through those 2 Airdrie games. I know we say this every season about the playoffs. David touched on it there, how difficult it is for the championship team to get up. But those were 2 tough games against Airdrie for Thistle. And I suppose, obviously, there's an argument to say they've got a bit of momentum because they've come through those 2 legs. But I just think physically, I'm sure David will back me up, just how tough it is to go Tuesday, Friday, games of these magnitude. And I felt the bits of the game I did see last night, I felt that with Thistle. Raith did look fresher. So it's going to be a real uphill task for Thistle to go and turn it around in Kirkcaldy. But as you say, that goal gives them a chance. It'll have given them a lift. As David says, they're probably coming into the game. When they got the goal, it looked as if they might get another, so that should give them a bit of belief, and obviously they've still got a chance. But as I say, I mean, what a task it is to get through those 2 ties and then have to go and play the team for the Premiership. It's really, really difficult.
You heard Brian Graham talk about it after the game, the first game against Airdrie. He just said it's just an uphill task because it's all set for the Premiership team to stay up, because they've got to play such grueling games, and it's not like it's every week, it's every 4 days, and it's hard, especially with squads that aren't that big.
Yeah, well, that takes us nicely, David, on to our next subject, because there's 5 games in the Premiership tonight, and 2 teams that are playing each other could end up playing against Partick Thistle or Raith in that playoff. St Johnstone against Ross County tonight at McDermott Park. Absolutely huge game. Only 2 points between them. Ross County better off by 2 points. I was at the St Johnstone game on Saturday. Thought they had it in their grasp, and then Livingston completely turned it around. David, how nervy an affair is this going to be for Craig Levine and his players, and Don Cowie and his set of players tonight?
Oh, massive. I think the fact that it's at St Johnstone as well makes it more nervous for St Johnstone because they're in front of their home crowd. But it's a huge game. I've watched their games over the past few months, and it's not been pretty. But they've showed signs that they can compete and they can win games. But they've made it really hard for themselves in the position that they're in. And I think with all the players that they've got, I think they've got that attacking threat to go and cause problems like they did against Livingston. They showed the positive and they showed their fight, but in the end they concede poor goals and it costs them. But I mean, this is going to be a huge game for them, and it's all or nothing for each team, I guess.
Yeah, Scott, we reflected on that journey it is there for the team in the Championship trying to get up, but how would you feel St Johnstone or Ross County's chances would be against a Partick Thistle or a Raith Rovers? Do you think they'd have the quality to see it through?
I don't think they would fancy it, Kenny. I'm sure they'd rather not be in that position. Listen, we've said that it is always weighted in favour of the Premiership club. I think that's clear, but no, either St Johnstone or Ross County, they certainly wouldn't want to. They wouldn't want to be going to Firhill or Starks Park, for one of these vital playoff games when it's really on a knife edge because of the atmospheres there. I mean, arguably Thistle and Raith Rovers. You think of the crowds that they can get in, bigger than St Johnstone or Ross County. So they certainly won't fancy it, but. No, going into those 2 games, as we've touched on, with the Championship team having already come through 4 games, 2 ties, it does make it really tough. As David says, I mean, just a massive game tonight. Real pressure for the two managers. Both clubs have had torrid seasons. We think of Ross County at the start. Obviously, the Derek Adams appointment just didn't work out. They've found themselves in this position. St Johnstone thought when they appointed Craig Levein that was going to kind of propel them up the league. His experience would just give them that edge and get them moving up. It hasn't worked out that way, and they found themselves in this situation where, as we've said, there no real pressure to avoid that playoff.
We experienced it with St Johnstone the past couple of years where we had to go up to Inverness. I mean, obviously I was injured at the time, but then you could feel the nerves around the place, and then I think it wasn't until the second leg when we scored in the second half it felt comfortable a wee bit. But it was so hard. There's such hard games, and I think the pressure kind of off a wee bit for the Championship teams going into it because they've got nothing to lose. Whereas the Premiership team's got it's all on their shoulders and it's all against them.
Well, let's move on to another team in action tonight. Hibs are playing Motherwell, and it's not been a great season for Hibs, as has been well documented. David Gray back in the dugout after the departure of Nick Montgomery, and Mackay in as sporting director. Scott, your take on things just briefly over the last 24 hours on Hibs?
I just feel sorry for the Hibs fans, Kenny, if I'm honest, because David knows this better than anyone. You look at Hibs, the stadium, the training ground, the infrastructure, the fan base, everything seems to be there for that club to go and kick on. And yet I just think the fans are suffering due to real bad football decisions, one after the other, in terms of the managerial position. I think that club, again, David will know better than me, I think that the history and the culture of Hibs, they need a manager with real personality, real character to go and lead that club. And I just think the last few appointments, including Nick Montgomery, just haven't had that. And that's down to the people making the big football decisions at the club. They can't get the next one wrong, but it feels as if I've said that for the last few. I think you could go back to when they sacked Jack Ross, third place in the league, getting to semi-finals at Hampden. I'm not sure what the club were looking for at that point. But it's now obviously there's new people in the door. Black Knights, they've put their money in. This is going to be a huge decision for them in terms of who the next manager is going to be. They've got clubs all over the world, so they're used to it. Mackay's obviously come in, which I think is a really good appointment as sporting director. I think he'll do a good job, and he'll have a say, I would think, in the next managerial appointment. But it's absolutely crucial because, as I say, the club cannot go on like this, and I just feel sorry for the supporters.
Yeah, and again, just briefly, David, given your past connection with Hibs, you must find it hard seeing them in this kind of perilous position at the moment.
Yeah, of course. It's hard to watch sometimes because I feel like there was a few years there where they had a bit of stability and a bit of, a direction, where as they're back to when I was there, it was like a revolving door of players. There was just players coming in, players going out, managers coming in, managers going out. There's not that stability. But it's down to the people that are making the decisions there, I guess. But more importantly tonight, it's Paul Hanlon and these last games at home. They've been massive servants for the club, and I think the fans will really enjoy that moment to say goodbye to their heroes, I guess, because they've certainly made their mark and their icons at that club now, because they've done it all for 20 years. They've been through the bad times, they've been through the good times, and there's certainly people to look up for young kids trying to inspire to be professional footballers.
Yeah, Paul Hanlon and Lewis Stevenson, some brilliant servants to Hibs there. So Killie, Celtic, Aberdeen, Livingston, Hibs, Motherwell, it's St Johnstone, Ross County and St Mirren, Welcome Hearts. Another huge game tonight is for Inverness Caley Thistle in the Championship playoff final first leg against Hamilton Accies. One of your former teams, David Wotherspoon. Big game for Duncan Ferguson.
Yeah, huge game for Duncan Ferguson. I was listening to his interview and it's just, he was saying it's critical that they stay up. For a club like that to go down, it'd be detrimental to the whole club, and staff, players, sort of the town itself, it would be heartbreaking for them, because they were challenging the Premiership not long ago, and then they were even in the cup final last year. So it's just crazy to think that they're struggling down there, and it's going to be a huge game against Hamilton, a team that have done well this season and looking to get promoted again.
Yeah, big night of action tonight, and you can watch that Hamilton against Inverness Cally Thistle game on BBC Alba from 7:55. Well, that's all we've got time for on the Scottish Football Podcast today, folks. Thanks to David Wotherspoon and Scott McDermott for joining me. David's going to check the post box to see if any of those contract offers have arrived yet. Remember, there's also 5 crucial SWPL games tonight, and remember, you can listen to the Behind the Goals podcast as well. Sports Sound is on tonight with open all mics across all the games, and then there are sports scene highlights at 10:40. Enjoy your Wednesday.
Sacked in the Morning is back.
I got the ball and I put it on the spot, and as I got up, it was literally the best feeling I've ever had. And believe me, I spent a lot of money on feelings in my life.
Joining Craig Levine and myself, Amy Irons, will be some of football's top managers, best characters and most colourful players as we reveal what exactly goes on inside the dugouts and dressing rooms up and down the country.
We had a lad the other week and I saw him, he was playing, the first half he was playing the opposite wing. He had a set of gloves on and short sleeves. And I thought to myself, I can't wait till next half till he comes near me.
As the manager comes in, he smashes the door open, the jacket's off, shirt sleeves are up. We're thinking, here we go. We're all nudging each other like school kids and giggling.
Sacked in the Morning. Listen now on BBC Sounds.